Hello, this is Jeremy Wright, the pastor of the Westside Missionary Baptist Church. This is our first live YouTube broadcast. Typically we record them and upload, but we decided to try one live today. We thought that would be fun, is what we thought. We thought it'd be fun. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a live YouTube video. Now, the reason we're doing this video, and the prominent thing we're going to talk about today, is the Roe versus Wade decision, or whatever you would call it, was overturned by the United States Supreme Court, meaning that the states now have the authority to make their own abortion laws, which is a good thing, because before that it was restricted to no abortion law. You couldn't put an undue burden on a woman to get an abortion, and this law was decided wrongly. It was a bad law. Now we are celebrating this overturn of Roe versus Wade, even though we know that there's still work to be done. Now, the first thing, I want to read something from the Bible here. This is 2 Chronicles chapter 7 and verse 14. And the Bible says, "If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land." Now, years ago I told somebody that one of the main problems in the United States was, it wasn't all of these social problems that they always talk about. It was abortion. Abortion is one of the main evils that America has been doing. We allow abortion legally in the United States, and we've done that for 50 years. I think Roe versus Wade has been on the books, as it were. And for 50 years, we've had that evil hanging over us. So that hangs over the entire nation. So we are a nation that needs to come back to God. And this is a good step in that direction. We are leaving this evil behind and coming towards something better. Now, I am very happy about this. And the church that I preach at, we're very happy here. And a lot of people are very happy about this. But that's not all that is going on. Right now, because of this, there are riots going on in parts of the country. Interestingly enough, in places where abortion is still going to be legal, because they're in these left-wing cities. I guess left-wing is a good way to describe it. These left-wing, Democrat-run cities. They've been run by Democrats for years and years and years. And it is my opinion, and I made a YouTube video about this back during around the election time. You can't vote for a Democrat, because Democrats have a lot of policies that are unrighteous. If you look in at their stance on most things, like abortion, their stance on abortion is they're for abortion, and many of them up until the moment before birth, which is madness. But really, if you look at them, you understand that that's what they are. One of them was denied communion by a Catholic church, I think, but then got communion somewhere else. We're not Catholics, we're Baptists, so we don't do it the same way they do. Now, if there's any doubt about whether or not a baby in the womb, they call it a fetus. Now, they do that on purpose. That's a trick. They're playing a trick on it. They call it fetus, so you think of it as something other than a child. Fetus is just Latin. It's a foreign language. It's a language not a lot of people speak. So fetus is just Latin, and it means offspring. Now, offspring is something that springs off of, so that's kind of how you get the word together. And you might have offspring, and you definitely are somebody's offspring if you're alive. And you'll be their offspring forever, so you're always a fetus. Now, there are other words like zygote, and I don't know what stage that is, and I don't care. I'm not a doctor. I don't have to know. There are people who have to know these things. But these different stages of development in the womb, people get real worried about that. They talk about it. I've been in an argument for a week now on Facebook about this. And I've made the same point over and over again. I believe that life begins at fertilization. That is the most reasonable place to start. That's the most reasonable place to understand it. And the reason I believe that is because that's what biology teaches us. And yes, I'm using science right now. And I know my feelings about science. Science is a great thing. It's a wonder that we figured out this scientific process. It's a wonder that we figured out all this biology. It's a great thing. But people misuse science. They call people science deniers for not believing in the I got something going on over here off camera. So they're for not believing in like climate change or something. Now, personally, I believe that the climate changes, but I don't believe that our actions are going to destroy the world in some quick way that they talk about. I don't think that that's accurate. When the hurricanes come, I live in Florida. When those hurricanes come, they tell us where they're going to go, and then they never go there. I mean, sometimes they get close, but that's 5 days. And 6 days they won't even talk about because I don't know where it's going in 6 days. We can tell you 5 days out, or 7, or whatever it is, I don't know. And then the next day they're not going to talk about it. So that's why I don't worry about that. But to be pro-abortion is to be in denial of science, which is actually a true statement. Typically when that's said, it's nonsense. But we'll use their stupid phrase against them. If you think that a child in the womb is not alive at fertilization, then you are denying science. The biologist that checked this out, there's a study on, and I don't care that much about studies, like some people do, but there are studies they've done where they got a bunch of biologists together and they asked them, and out of 5,000 something of them, 95% of them said that that children are alive at fertilization, because that makes the most sense. But you don't have to be a scientist to know that. And this is something I want you to understand, because people have trouble with this. And take this idea. You need to be able to figure things out for yourself. Now that doesn't mean that you have to know quantum physics. That doesn't mean that you have to figure out how to do a surgery or something like that. But you do need to be able to check what you're being told and decide whether or not it's right or wrong. And if you look at the concept here of birth, you have two humans that produce an offspring, a fetus, which is Latin for offspring, and I know we've said that before, but I want to make sure that you understand it. That produce this child. The child will be in the womb of their mother. That's important, because as soon as you have fertilization, you are now a mother. That moment. It's not months later. It's not when the child's born. It's then. And that's important to keep in mind, because, well, then you'll understand what's going on. Now, the way that we know that this fetus is alive is it shows the signs of life. To live means to do certain things. One of those things is to grow. One of those things is to develop. And the fetus begins growing and developing immediately upon fertilization. So now we have a living organism. Now, organism is an interesting word, right? Because it could be anything. Anything could be a living organism. A duck's a living organism, right? You're a living organism. I'm a living organism. So we have a living organism. Now, the next important part of this is, what is that living organism? Well, if it was produced by two human beings, well, it must be a human being. And there's no other way around that. You can't move that somewhere else. It has to be that. There's the only thing that logically makes sense. And as science progresses, and as we can see more, we will notice that in the womb, these children are alive right away. And that's important. Now, I was doing some studying because I was in an argument with somebody, and they kept bringing up consciousness and brain activity. Well, you're unconscious every night for a third of the day, right? Most people sleep about 8 hours. That's what they tell you to sleep. I don't know if you need 8 hours or not. I've spent times in my life where I lived on an average of 5 and 6 hours a night, and I've spent times in my life where I got like 8 or 9 hours of sleep every night. So I didn't notice that much of a difference. So keep that in mind. Who knows, right? But for the most part, people sleep a third of the day. You know, you got a third of the day you sleep, a third of the day you're at work, and a third of the day you get to play around, right? Do whatever you want. You know, take care of your family obligations and things of that nature. Well, for that third of a day when you're asleep, you're unconscious. You're not conscious of what's going on around you. You're not conscious of yourself at all. You might be dreaming, but a dream is not a conscious thing exactly. I mean, there's something to dreams, but that's not what we're going to talk about here. That's complicated and take a long time. you couldn't go in and kill that person because they are asleep. If somebody was in a coma. Now, there are some comas where that's it. They're not going to come out of the coma, and the doctors might know that. But I've known people who have been in comas and come out of comas. Well, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? You can be in a coma and come out. That means you were unconscious for a time, and then you were conscious again. So, the state that they are in at the moment is not the state they will always be in, because we live in time. And these things are going to progress. This child is going to develop. Now, they also brought up brain activity. Now, again, I believe at fertilization, that child is alive and a human being. And the reason I believe that is because that's right. That's true. I'm going to believe that because it's true. But, well, when does the brain start to develop? And when do you have brain activity? Is it when the brain starts to develop, or is it when the brain is fully developed? Because that's like 25 years old. So what are you going to do? You can kill your kid up to 25 years old because your brain is not fully developed until you're in your mid-20s. And you can look that up if you want to, or you can believe me. And you know what? I don't care. If you believe me or not, I don't really care, because it doesn't matter. I know it's true. And you can know that if you're over 25, if you're in your 30s or so. You can tell, like, I am better at these things that I was really bad at when I was younger. One of that is time under pressure. That's what we're going to call it, time under pressure. The pressure of living has made you better. But then also, some of that is your brain is developing. That's why you can teach a little kid something so quickly, or at least you feel like it so quickly. I had somebody tell me recently that it's easier to teach children than adults. And I said, well, it's easier to teach adults, mechanically. That might be the right word, mechanically. I know there's no machines involved, but technically, whatever it is. Because when you teach adults, they're quiet. They don't jump around. They don't play. They don't sit there and go, ooh, 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 ooh. I mean, it's not common. It might happen every once in a while. There's a reason for that. The children's brains have not developed impulse control. It's not there. And the younger they are, the less of it they have. Because they're developing their whole lives. Not just in the womb, but after you leave the womb, you're still developing. You know, you can eat a lot of food, and you can develop a big stomach. You can do that at 50, you can do that at 12. It's easier at 50, and harder at 12, I imagine, because your metabolism's faster when you're younger. But you can do that. You can develop throughout your entire life. You can increase your intelligence as you get older. Now, as you get older, see, this is what happens. This is why it appears. And it probably is true that children are easier to teach. One, their brains are not as full. They don't know as much. And the less you know, the more you can learn, right? That's the progression. So they don't know as much. And their brains are still developing, so you can get information in there easier. And a lot of times when you're teaching children, you'll notice that they're not paying attention. And then you'll ask them questions and they'll have answers that are pretty good. Because children can learn things without paying as close attention as you might have to. And that's an amazing thing. So it's both easier and more difficult to teach children. Now, this brain thing. At 4 weeks in the after fertilization, I read this on several websites, and one of them started week 1 before fertilization, because I think that's how they do it. It's based on menstrual cycles, and I don't think you want to hear a bunch about menstrual cycles, and I don't really want to talk about it. So we're just going to go on to 4 weeks after fertilization. The neural plate is what they called it. And remember, I'm not a doctor, so if you're a doctor out there and you're like, it's actually this word, fine. But this is what I read. Several websites. I checked this out. I looked at various ones, including Mayo Clinic, I think was one of them. And I read this, and it said that was the one that had like 2 different times every night. So that was fun. And the neural plate begins. And that's what they called it in what I was reading. This neural plate, that's where your brain and your spinal cord is coming from. So the baby's brain and spinal cord are developing at 4 weeks. Now, I don't know how soon you can tell you're pregnant, but 4 weeks is pretty early. And you may not be able to tell. You might. I mean, they got some of those early pregnancy tests, but the people who are trying to get pregnant might find out really early, but people who aren't Well, they're not. They're not going to find out really early. So here we have the neural plate forming. That neural plate then by week 7, now that's not very long either, you have a rudimentary brain. That's what they called it. They called it the rudimentary brain. There's another name for it that was hard to say, so I'm not going to say it. And and the spinal cord has developed enough that it can have synapses. And the fetus, at 7 weeks, that's when the first movements happen. That is what I read on websites that were written by doctors. Like, I'm not a doctor. I even read waves in children at 40 weeks, or 40-something weeks, which, not weeks, sorry, 40 days. 40 days is, let's see, what is 40 days? That's 10 days over a month, right? So that's a month and a little bit. So 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Brainwaves? No, that's what they said. Now I don't know if that's true, and I wasn't there for the study. So don't tell me like, oh, that's not true. I don't care. Like I said, I believe fertilization, so I don't care. But for the brain activity argument, it's at the latest 7 weeks. When was abortion allowed? When did Roe versus Wade say that you could not restrict abortions? Anything before 21 weeks. 21 weeks. Huh. That's a big difference. That's a huge difference. A lot of people don't even know they're pregnant at 7 weeks, I bet. You know, you have to, a lot of things have to happen. 7 weeks, you probably have some inclination. But 6 weeks, you may not know. And all of this is already producing in 6 weeks. But when is the brain produced? When the baby moves? Or when the brain starts to develop? The brain starts to develop about right away. And that's the problem. All of the systems in a human being start to develop at fertilization. That's when it begins. So there's no line to draw. You can't say, well, it's 7 weeks, 2 hours and 14 minutes. Because that's the line you have to draw, right? 7 weeks, 2 hours and 14 minutes. You can't draw that line. You know why? Because there's nothing consistent there. Because different babies will develop at different rates. And that's another problem we might have. Some might develop quicker. Some might develop slower. Does that change things? Of course not. So Roe versus Wade needed to be overturned. And we are celebrating that back because it was garbage law. And it's evil. It's evil to kill babies, even in the womb. So remember that when you're out there in the world and people are telling you it's okay. Now, if you're not compelled by the science, which is fine, in Jeremiah chapter 1 and verse 4, the Bible says, "Then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying," this is unto Jeremiah, "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations." So, Jeremiah, before he was existed, God knew it. That's interesting, right? God knew you before you existed too. That little baby in the womb, God knows them. God knows that little baby. That's important to remember. Very important. These are very small babies, but they're still babies. You know, very tiny. And typically when things are smaller, we think they're cuter. So these are the cutest babies, are the little tiny babies in the womb, because they're really small. But you can't see them and play with them because they're so little and fragile, and they're still building, they're still developing, so they can live in the world. But then once they get in the world, they're still going to be developing, so you can't use that as a difference. Now, the next part here is the really telling part. "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb." That means before he was born into the world, God sanctified him and ordained him a prophet. So God decided that Jeremiah was a prophet before he was born. There are people in the world who will get things wrong. They will read the Bible, and in Genesis, which I didn't plan on reading this, but I'm going to read it because I think it will help. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." Now, people will say that that's when he first breathed, he became a living soul. No. One, Adam was not born. He was formed out of the dust of the ground and God breathed into him. It doesn't say anything about Adam's breathing, so that's not That doesn't say that you're not alive till you breathe. That's not what it says. And I've seen others like this. There's in whom's nostrils is the breath of life. That's just talking about people who breathe. And people who breathe are alive. And in the womb, you don't breathe yet. Although they do mimic it. Their lungs start doing something. They mimic breathing. They call it false breathing or fake breathing or something like that. See, these babies are alive. And the word viable, that was kind of interesting. I heard somebody use the word viable, and because I can and I want to, I'm going to look it up. And I'm going to tell you what the word viable actually means. I'm going to use my computer to look it up. And I know I'm live here, and I should have planned this in advance, but I didn't. So we're going to do it now. If I can type. Alright, so we're going to look up the meaning of viability, which is going to be fun as soon as I get it to go to the right one. Alright, so there's two definitions on here, and I have a problem with dictionaries because they got so many definitions. First definition, ability to work as intended or to succeed. So, a fetus in the womb is working as intended and toward the success of birth. Now that's kind of interesting, isn't it? So viable, at fertilization, they're viable, based on the meaning of the word. Now, you can find a different meaning if you want to. Now, the next one, the other one, this is the biological definition of it, so this is even closer to what we're looking for. It says, ability to continue to exist or develop as a living being. So, viable, as soon as fertilization starts, it's existing, because there's something that exists, and developing as a living being. You see, your ideas of what one day we're going to get the technology so that when I do that, it goes on your screen. But we don't have the technology yet. So we're working on it. We have a way to donate money to us if you want to on this. There's a button somewhere. Some way you can donate to us if you want to. And we'll use that money for the improvements of these videos or food, like if we need food. So either one of those things. It might be one or the other. Probably if it's enough, it'll be improvements. We'll get more technology in here, you know, which is brought to us by science, I guess. People bring the technology. So what I want you people to do, by you people I mean people that are listening to me, and what I want you to do is I want you to celebrate. I want you to celebrate that Roe versus Wade was overturned. I want you to post on your Facebooks, Roe versus Wade was overturned, hip hip hooray, whatever you want to post on there. Post it in the comment section of this video. Put in there, hooray, hooray. The evil of abortion is on its way out. But another thing I want you to do, I want you to write email. You can email them now. Remember when they called mail snail mail and then you had email, which is the new thing? Well, now who emails? I sent an email today. But emailing is not what we do all that much. You get a bunch of emails, but how much emailing do you do? Some people do more, some people do less. I don't email very much at all. I do have to monitor a few email things. Pages, what do they call them? Email, whatever. I gotta look at my email things. I'm not technically savvy. I have to have somebody come do all this for me so I can bring these entertaining videos to you. So, alright, I got off track there for a second. But what I want you to do, write up an email, send it to your governor. Whatever state you're in, send it to your governor. Send it to your legislatures. Yeah, legislators, however you say that. Send it to them and tell them that you want abortion stopped in your state and you want it now. Be like the girl from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I want it now. I want it right now. I want abortion stopped. Do that. You can and you should. I already emailed the governor in Florida, so he's got my email. I've emailed him twice now, and I might email him again. He hasn't returned to me, but I don't care if he sends me back. I don't care if he emails me back. That's not why I'm doing this. I want abortion stopped. And that's what I'm looking for. Now, if you have trouble with arguing with abortionists, well, that's normal. Because the reason that they want abortion, and this is where we'll be done soon, so you won't have to be here too much longer. But the reason that they want abortion, not we, but they, is because of selfishness and fear. You see, people look at this idea, if they have a kid now, what will happen to me? What if I have this kid? Can I take care of this kid? Well, what will happen to me? If I have this kid, can I afford all the things I want? Can I afford to do what I want? Won't I be stuck at home all the time? And the answer is, maybe. Maybe you won't be able to afford as much. Maybe you won't be able to go out as often. But you know what? You probably go out too much and you probably spend too much money. So save your money. Spend it on your kids. Kids are wonderful. Have children. And enjoy having children. And take care of your children. Now here's another thing. I'm the pastor of a church. I've been complained to on more than one occasion about how, well, churches are supposed to help people. It's like, yeah. Our first mission is to tell people how to be saved. To tell people about Jesus so they can trust Him as their Savior. But we are to help people. The thing is, I can't help you if you won't come to the church. If you won't come here and ask me for help, I can't help you. Now, if you have children, this is important. This is something people don't understand. There's an old saying, the family that prays together stays together. It's true. Because it gives you some external source that your marriage is focused on something other than just the two of you. Which marriages are supposed to be the two of you doing something with your lives. Doing something beneficial. Not just for your family, but for the people around you. That's how you do things. That's how we had a phone go off here. That's how you achieve. Think about it this way. You have a room. Now, you might be a kid, and you have a room. If your room is dirty, clean it. Clean it now. Clean it soon. Clean your room. Now, there's a reason for this. This office is kind of the way I want it set up. Because when I look around, I like how it looks. It's visually appealing. Because when you live in chaos, your mind becomes chaos. So the first thing you do is bring order to what's around you. You start by trusting Jesus, because that's the only way you can understand order, is through Jesus. You can understand it in this kind of vague way, but through Jesus you can really understand order, because God brought order to chaos, to nothing. He really brought order to nothing. And you can bring order to the chaos around you, so you just put your stuff in the right place. You move your things. Like, this thing's crooked, now it's straight. This stuff's over here, doesn't look good, so I tidy it up. There's trash on the floor, throw it in the garbage. Do that. Now, I know this is a Roe versus Wade celebration lesson. I'm telling you to clean your room. You need to clean your room. Clean your room. If it's not clean, you need to clean it. And you need to make it look nice and tidy. You need to put all your stuff in the same spot every time. You need to. That's important. Like, my keys go in the same place every day. I always know where my keys are. Every once in a while, I'll put my sunglasses in some silly place. Like today, I come in here. Normally, I put my sunglasses over here on this thing. I don't know how far out you can see, but there's a thing. I put my sunglasses there. Today, I put them over here. They're not there. So I don't know where I put them. So they're gone. I've lost my sunglasses. Because I put them somewhere other than where I normally put them. Because that's disorder, and disorder is hard to deal with. You need a little, what do you call it, adventure. It means you go out into the disorder, right? A little adventure. You got you got a foot in order, and then you're bringing light to chaos. That's what you're supposed to do, light to the darkness. That's how you live. So you start by fixing your room, where you are. Then you fix the next stage. Then you fix the next stage. Then you fix the next stage. And that's how you do things. That's what a church does. A church brings order spiritually to chaos. We bring light to the darkness of the world. So if you have children and you don't know how to raise them, some people don't know how to raise their kids. It's not exactly intuitive how to raise kids. You got to think about it. You got to know what you're doing. Now, it's not so hard that it can't be done. Millions of people have done it. Well, here's an interesting fact about churches. Most churches have people in them that have raised children. I know. It's a mind-boggling idea, right? Now, you can go to these churches that have these people who have raised children. Sometimes there are grandparents there. These are people who have raised children. Now, their children are raising children. And you know what you can do? You can say, hey, my kid's doing this. Did you ever have a kid do that? And they might say yes, because children are similar to each other. And the Bible has some lessons on how to raise kids. Mostly it's train them up in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Well, how are you going to get them trained up in the way they should go? Bring your kids to church, and we will help you. We're fine with that. My wife babysits semi-regularly. She kind of enjoys it. She likes kids. She'll babysit kids. And there's going to be a lot of people at church that will babysit your kids. This is an important thing because babysitting costs money. Now, what you should do, if you are either one of these people, if you are the babysitter, let's say, well, we'll start with them. If you're the babysitter, and you're going to babysit the kids, you know what you should do? You should not ask for any money. You should just say, oh yeah, I'll babysit your kids, fine. And you take them and you babysit them, play with them and stuff. You know, feed them. All the things you're supposed to do with children. When they come in and cry, you pet them on their head and pick them up, hug them, or whatever they need. You know, take them out and let them play. Let them do this, let them do that. Teach them something if you can. And then give them back to their parents and say, all right, thanks, have a good night. And that's completely fine. And if they don't pay you, just be happy that you got to babysit a kid. Now, if you're the other people, if you're getting somebody to babysit, if you can, note that, if you can. Not if you can't. If you can't, don't do it. If you can, give them a little money for babysitting your kid. You know, they probably bought something. Like usually when we babysit, we got to buy some food every once in a while. I don't know how often we have to. You got to buy a little. We got little cartons of Yoo-hoo. Can I say that on here? That's a brand name. Well, it's said now. It's live, so we can't go back and edit it now. Should have had a 2-second delay. So we bought. You buy these little drinks for kids. Now we drink them because it's good, but surely they wouldn't care if I was pro their product. But oh well. So you buy these things and then so maybe give them some money. Like, here's some money. Thanks for watching my kid. Good deal, right? All this stuff is fine. But if you can't, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. If they ask for money, then you have somebody else babysit. Go find the preacher's wife. The preacher's wife will probably babysit. If not, talk to the preacher, and he will probably say, wife, you should babysit this kid. And then she'll say, okay. My house. My wife's in search of people to babysit, I think. If she sees a kid out there, it's like, do you need a babysitter? And the kid's like, an infant. They're in one of those little devices that you put in the car. Baby car seats, baby seats. It's like, I'm not going to watch a kid. Like, my wife will be watching your kid. I can watch a kid too. I'm being a little silly here because I forgot the name of the car seat. And they come out and you can carry them in those little things, And I seen a video about how to do that one time. You're supposed to put your arm through it. And I was like, that looks like it hurt. But that's what they showed on the video. I don't know. Facebook's weird. That's another brand name. Man. Okay. I don't know. Maybe YouTube won't care. So, she'll go and talk to these little babies in these little seats and say, hey, look at this baby. If we go anywhere, she talks to babies that she sees. Because they're cute and they're funny when they talk to you. And we all like babies. Almost everybody likes babies. And so, bring your kids to church. Ask some questions. There are people there. If the pastor won't tell you anything about how to raise kids, then you go find a church where the pastor will tell you. Because he should. If you ask me, I will give you advice. If you come to me and say, my kid's doing this, what should I do? Say it like that, though. Don't just say, my kid does this. I can't get him to stop. Because I'm immediately going to say, well, this is what you do. You have to be in control of your child. It's very important. There's a guy wrote a book, and one of the chapters is, don't let your kids do anything that makes you dislike them. Well, that's true. Because if you dislike what they're doing, other people will dislike what they're doing. Some of those people are going to be the children they play with. You don't want your child to be disliked by all the other kids. So bring your kids to church. At our church, we have a family fun day where we play with the kids, gets them off of these things. You got your kid doing this. You don't want that all day. It's not good. Bring them up here. We'll play with them. We'll get them out. We'll run them around. We'll take them outside. It's Florida and it's June, so we've been playing inside a little more because it's hot out there. But we can go outside. We got a volleyball net. We got a basketball goal. We got a big field. We did an egg hunt. It was fun. It was hot that day too. Hot in Florida sometimes. You can hear my fan going probably. You can't run without a fan. It's a lot of go. It's tough. So think about what I've said here. But first and foremost, celebrate the fall of Roe versus Wade, because that is a wonderful thing that's happened. Now, like, comment, and subscribe. Do all three of those things. Now listen, you may not want to, but I will take just the subscribe and the like. But if you have a good comment, put a comment in there. I like comments. If you disagree with me, put a comment in there. Say, well, I don't think babies are alive until they're born because I don't want to have to end up with a baby I don't want. Now, if you make any other argument, I mean, you're probably lying. But because I find those other arguments to be dishonest. That's why I don't bring them up. I have other videos about abortion if you want more. I even have a video explaining why you can eat meat, but you can't abort a baby. So watch those videos. I don't know. They probably won't show up anywhere around here because this is live and we don't know how to do that. We'll learn one day maybe, if that's possible. Somebody out there that does a lot of YouTube is like, this guy doesn't even know how to YouTube. It's like, and it's, you know, put that in the comments. Put in the comments. This is how you do that. And we will thank you in the comments maybe. Maybe in video form. Put your name on there and I'll say, this guy, you know, whatever his name is, he did this. And if you dislike me, if you don't like what I'm saying, make an argument. But if you don't have an argument, then I guess you're going to have to agree with me because I've got the better argument here. And I explained it in detail because that's what you do. And that's what you need to do when you get out there with the with those pro-abortionists. They're not pro-choice, they're pro-abortionists. Tell them what's actually going on. Explain to them why you think the baby's alive. And if they still argue with you, fine. But at least you did what was right. Because how are we going to stop abortion? Maybe legally. But there's another way to stop abortion. You can convince people that abortion is wrong. And then maybe they won't do it. And we won't even need a law against abortion because no one will think of it as an option. I know that's a long ways off. And I know that's difficult. But that's what we need to do. That's what we're here for. To better the world around us. First by bettering ourselves. So celebrate that Roe versus Wade has fallen. Enjoy that. Soon at our church we're going to have 4th of July. We're going to go out and watch the fireworks in our parking lot because you can see them from where we have it. If you are in the area we live in, and we have a website, westsidemissionarybaptistchurch.com, right?
Well, it's WMBCArbandale.com.
WMBCArbandale.com. Go there and you can find our website. And you can see when we're doing things. Also, we are on Facebook. And our Facebook is the same, WMBC.com.
It's WMBC Arbandale.
WMBC Arbandale on Facebook. You can search that. You should be able to find us. We put all of our sermons on YouTube at the church. So you can do that. And I'm Jeremy Wright, pastor of the Westside Missionary Baptist Church in Arbandale. So now y'all know where I am, so you know where to send the hate mail. and good. So, and you can come join us at church. And that would be a lot of fun. We're going to celebrate the 4th of July, and this is going to be the greatest 4th of July celebration that we can have because Roe versus Wade has fallen, and we're excited about it. All right, you guys have a good day, and go out there and tell people abortion's wrong.